Hopefully this mic's working. Welcome to my channel. Hope you'll enjoy this video. I'm sorry I've been away for a little while. Just moved into a new place, which is really exciting. Yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy this tutorial. Today we are going to be making a crocheted popcorn coaster. I made the pattern for this myself using some techniques that I'd learned from other content creators, which have proven really helpful for me. The equipment you're going to need if you wish to follow the tutorial is a crochet hook. I'm using a 3.5mm crochet hook, but you could also use a 4mm crochet hook instead if you prefer. You will also need a stitch marker to keep track of your rows so you know where you're starting and where you're finishing. You will also need a tapestry needle or a yarn needle. We'll use this at the end of our project to stitch our tails in so they're not flailing around all over the place. You will also need a pair of scissors to cut the yarn when you've finished working. And you're also going to need your yarn. You can use one color or two colors depending on your choices. I'm currently using an acrylic yarn, but you could use whatever yarn you feel more comfortable with. You don't necessarily need these yarn holders. They're just a tool that I find really helpful because I don't have to stop to manually unwind my yarn. This allows my yarn to move with me as I'm working. Oh, accidentally knocked something over there. So yeah, let's jump into the tutorial, and I hope you enjoy making these coasters as much as I have been. This tutorial is going to be as beginner friendly as possible. We are going to be using a mix of magic ring, chains, double crochet, single crochet, and of course the popcorn stitch, which is going to be our little banner edging border around the outside of our coaster. So let's get started, and if you don't know how to make these stitches, it's okay. I'm going to break each one down step by step and show you how to do it. So let's jump into the tutorial, and I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you for being here. Okay, so to start our coaster, you're going to take your crochet hook in whatever hand you feel more comfortable holding your crochet hook. If you're a beginner crocheter and you're not sure how to hold your hook or your yarn, I'm going to show you a technique that works for me, and I hope you find it useful. So when I'm working, what I usually do is I lay my palm in front of me, so it's facing me like this, but I'm going to do it at an angle so I can show you. What I do is I lay my yarn over my pinky, my middle, and my ring finger so that it goes underneath my index finger and then comes back over my index finger. And then you can use, as you're working, you can use your index finger to control your yarn tension, and your thumb and your middle finger to hold your work. For those of you who don't know how to do a magic ring, I'm going to show you a technique, a way that I do it that I find really helpful. So what you want to do is hold your yarn and wrap the yarn loosely around your index finger 2 times, and then you're going to put your crochet hook under the first loop and through the back loop, and then if you pull the back loop through the front loop, I'm just going to show you that again one more time. So hold your yarn, wrap your yarn around your finger twice. Don't pull it too tight, otherwise it's going to make it tricky to get your hook under. And then you want to put your hook under that first loop, pull the back loop through the front loop. Once you've done that, you should see a bit your working yarn here. So after you've pulled the back loop through the front loop, you're going to hook up a loop of your working yarn and then pull that through the loop on your hook. It can be a little bit fiddly and you might have to practice a few times to get the hang of it. It's a little bit tricky to show you at this angle. And once you've done that, you should be able to take your finger out of that little loop, and then your magic ring has started. So then what you're going to do is grab the side of the magic ring where your little yarn tail is and flip it over so that the yarn tail is now facing the top of the magic ring. And then you want to chain 2 so that you can secure your yarn, which is really simple. You just yarn over with your working yarn and pull it through the loop on your hook. That's one chain. And then do the same again, yarn over, pull through. That's your chain 2. The next step is to do 12 double crochets into your magic ring. But you want to make sure that you're working so that the yarn tail is trapped under your stitches, but you want to keep those stitches nice and loose, because when we've done our 12 double crochets, we're going to need to be able to pull on this yarn tail to close up our magic ring. If you don't know how to do a double crochet, I'm going to show you now. So what you need to do is yarn over and then put your crochet hook into the magic ring, yarn over again and pull that back through that magic ring. So you should have 3 loops on your hook now. And then what you want to do is yarn over again and pull through the first 2 loops. So then instead of 3 loops on your hook, you have 2. And then yarn over again and pull that through both those 2 loops. And now you have your first double crochet in your magic ring. Now we're going to need 12 double crochets in that magic ring. I'm going to show you one more time, just to make sure nobody gets confused. So yarn over into the magic ring, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and then pull through the first 2, yarn over and pull through the second 2. So now you have 2 double crochets in your magic ring. Keep working until you have 12 double crochets in your magic ring. Pause the video and I will meet you once we both have our 12 double crochets in our magic ring. Okay, so now you should have your 12 double crochets in your magic ring. If you lose track of how many stitches you've done, On the top of each stitch, you should be able to see like these little V shapes. So you should have 12 of these little V's on the top. So once you have your 12 double crochets in your magic ring, you're going to pinch your work where you started, and that little yarn tail from where we started our work, if you pull on that, it will shrink your magic ring, you see? So you want to pull that so that magic ring is closed nice and tight, but you don't want to pull on the yarn too hard because it might snap. So you might have to do a little pull and then readjust and pull again. Now that our magic ring is closed, you can see that our circle is starting to form. This next bit might be a little fiddly, so what you're going to want to do is find the top of the first double crochet that you did, and you want to put your crochet hook back into the top of that first double crochet stitch. You might have to count backwards from the stitch on your hook to find it. Okay, so once you've put your crochet hook back through the first double crochet of that last row, I like to take my tail from the magic ring and just rest it over the top of my hook. And then what I do is I use my fingers and I pinch that yarn tail against my work so that as I'm working, I can hide that yarn tail in my work, which saves having to stitch it in later. And then from here, what we're going to do is yarn over. We're going to do a slip stitch. So to do that, we yarn over once, pull it back through that first double crochet that we did, and also back through the loop on our hook. I'll show you one more time, just in case we have any beginner crocheters following the tutorial. So put your crochet hook back through the first double crochet that you did on that last row, yarn over, pull through that first double crochet and through the loop on your hook. And that is your slip stitch done. What we're going to do here to start the next row is chain 2. So just like before, yarn over, pull through. That's 1 chain, yarn over, pull through. That's 2 chains. The next thing we're going to do is increase every stitch all the way around. So to do that, we're just going to do 2 double crochets into each space. And as we're doing that, we're going to keep that yarn tail, which is this smaller bit of yarn here, pinched against our work. So as we're crocheting, we can hide this yarn tail in our stitches. So yarn over, go into the first space, make sure you keep that yarn tail pinched tight against your work, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the first 2. That's the first double crochet of this row. And then we've got to increase that stitch, so we're going to do another double crochet into that same space. So yarn over, go back into that same space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is our first increase. And just keep working that all the way around until you get back to the first stitch. If you're worried you're going to lose your starting point, you can put your stitch marker into the top of the first double crochet that we did. So just keep working 2 double crochets into each space until you get back to the starting point, and work it all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Okay, so I'm still working around my piece, still doing 2 double crochets into each space, all the way around. Notice how when I'm doing this, my yarn tail is pinched up tight against my work. So as I'm going into the stitch, yarning over, pulling through, as I yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, you see how that yarn tail, it's now trapped underneath the stitch that I've done. That's going to stop it from flopping all over the place. So make sure you keep that yarn tail pinched up against the back of your work. So as you're crocheting, you're locking that tail in place. So yeah, keep working 2 double crochets into each space all the way around your work. So right now you're seeing the back of my work. This is what the front of your work should look like. Yeah. Pause the video in a second. Keep working 2 double crochets into each space. Then at the end of the round, instead of having 12 double crochets, you should have 24 double crochets. Remember, when you're working, keep an eye on your tension. So what I mean here is this long bit of yarn that we're working with, you're working on, you don't want to put too much tension on that working yarn, because that's the more tension you have on the working yarn, the tighter your stitches are going to be. So you want to try and keep a fairly relaxed tension. If you make your tension too much, you're going to make your stitches really tight. And if your stitches are really tight, it's hard to get your crochet hook back into those stitches when you continue working. Okay, so now I have done my 12 increases. So 2 double crochets into each space. This is the front of my work. You can see that circle has doubled inside. And then if I show you the back of my work, see? You cannot see that yarn tail. It is camouflaged and stuck in place in our work. Don't forget to do 2 double crochets into the slip stitch that we did earlier. That also counts as a stitch. So once you've done your 12 increases, which would be 2 double crochets into the same space all the way around, you should get to this point. And then what we're going to do to finish off this row is find the top of that first double crochet that we did, which should be the stitch next door. So go into the top of that first double crochet and slip stitch. So yarn over, pull through the stitch and pull through the loop on your hook. That is our second row done. And then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2 again. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And then the next row is going to be a little bit of a pattern. So what you're going to do in the first space, you're going to do 2 double crochets into that first space. That's one. Ooh, yarn's got a bit too tight. And that's 2. And then in the space next door, you're going to do 1 double crochet by itself. And then in the next space, you're going to do 2 double crochets. That's 1. That's 2. And then in the next space, you're going to do 1 double crochet. And you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way around until you get back here. You should finish on an increase. So 2 double crochets into the same space, into the next space, 1 double crochet. So you do 2 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and just repeat that all the way around, making sure you work into every space. And I will meet you at the end of the row. Little tip, if your hook is making like a squeaky sound as you're working, that means you're putting too much tension on your yarn. Your hook shouldn't be making a squeaky sound as you're working. Okay, so by the time you finish that round, your coaster should be looking something like this. So you should have done a pattern of 2 double crochets in one space and then 1 single crochet in the next space, 2 double crochets in one space, 1 double crochet in the next space. Then once you've repeated that all the way around, we're going to slip stitch into the neck, into that first double crochet of the round, which finishes row number 3. And then we're going to chain 2 and start row number 4. Now at the end of row number 4, we will be changing colors. So I will meet you just before I do my last double crochet stitch. So in this row, we're going to do 2 double crochets together in the first space, and then in the next 2 spaces, we're going to do 1 double crochet on its own. I'm just going to show you that one more time. So we're going to do 2 double crochets in one space to increase that stitch. And then in the next 2 spaces, we're going to do 1 double crochet by itself. The easiest way that I find to remember this is to do 2 double crochets together and then 2 double crochets separately, and just repeat that pattern all the way around, and I will meet you just before we do the last double crochet of that row.